students, welcome to Sunil's tutorial. I'm Sunil Mirwani and today we'll be doing this chapter called as hormonal coordination in human. Now, when we are talking about hormones, first let's see what secretes those hormones. Let's see endocrine gland. Let us see endocrine gland. What is endocrine gland? It is a ductless gland. It is a ductless gland which secretes it secretes its secretions. The ductless gland which secretes its secretions directly into the blood circulation to reach the target organ. Right? So what is endocrine glands? The ductless glands which secrete their secretions directly into the blood circulations to reach the target organs are called as endocrine glands. Right? So here the secretions are going to be given directly into the blood, okay, and they will directly reach the target organs. Now, which are the endocrine glands? I can say that there are 6 main endocrine glands. There are 6 main endocrine glands. So there are 6 such glands which give out their hormones or which give out the hormones directly into the blood so that they can reach the target organ. They are A. The pituitary gland, it releases its secretions into the blood. Then thyroid gland. Then you have 2 pairs of parathyroid glands, then a pair of adrenal gland, then you have pineal gland, and finally you have the thymus gland. So these are those 6 ductless glands which secrete the hormones which are directly released into the bloodstream and they can directly reach the target organs. Right? Now, hormones are nothing but hormones or proteins, amines, glycoproteins, hormones are the proteins, amines, glycoproteins, secretions of the endocrine glands which are directly released into the blood circulation, and act on target organs. So these are hormones. Hormones are the proteins, amines and glycoprotein secretions of endocrine glands which are directly released into blood circulation and act on target organs. Right? Now, what are the properties of hormones? What are the properties of hormones? They are secreted in small quantities in small quantities. Second, they act as chemical regulators or chemical messengers. They act as chemical regulators or chemical messengers. Next, they show their effect on the remote target organ and are non-antigenic. They show their effect on target organs. They show the effect on target organs and are non-antigenic. Right? Their effect on the target organs are slow, lingering, and long-lasting. Their effect on target organ are slow, lingering, and long lasting. Right? Excess or deficiency of hormones can bring about morphological and physiological disorders in human bodies. Excess or deficiency of hormones bring about morphological and physiological disorders in human body. Right? So those are the properties of hormones. Now how do I classify hormones? Classification of hormones is done on the basis of its chemical nature. Classify hormones. Right? Now, depending upon the chemical nature of the hormone, you classify them. Nature hormone. Now, amines, hormones that contain amines are one is adrenaline, then you have noradrenaline, and thyroxine. These are three hormones that contain amines in them. Next, the second classification is polypeptides. In short, proteins. Now, the hormones that contain proteins are ACTH, oxytocin, ADH, GH, prolactin, insulin. These are hormones that contain polypeptide. Third, glycoproteins. Hormones that contain glycoproteins are TSH, FSH, LH, etc. And the next is steroids. Hormones that contain steroids are estrogen, testosterone, estrogen, testosterone. Then you have progesterone, and you have the next hormone, that is cortisol. So these are those hormones that contain steroids in them. So that's my classification of hormones. Now let us see the morphology and the histology of pituitary gland. Let's first draw a pituitary gland. Let's label this. Pars distilis, pars intermedia. This whole thing is adeno hypophysis, which is also called as anterior pituitary. Right, this is my neurohypophysis, neurohypophysis, which is also called as posterior pituitary. Right, then you have pars nervosa. This here is my hypothalamus. These are the neurosecretory cells. Secretory cells. Then you have median eminence. This is your median eminence. And you have hypophyseal stalk. And this combined together is called as the infundibulum. Right. So those parts, this part here is called as pars tubularis. Right? That's my diagram of pituitary gland. Now let's try studying about the pituitary gland. Let's try to see the pituitary gland. Now, the pituitary gland, it is located on the ventral side of the brain below the hypothalamus. Located on ventral side of the brain below the hypothalamus. Right? Now, where is it lodged? It is lodged within the cavity of cranium. It is lodged within the cavity of cranium called sella tucisa. Right? It is connected to the hypothalamus. It is connected to the hypothalamus by a stalk called infundibulum, right, which is also called as the pituitary stalk. Now it has the size of size of a pea, right, and weighs about 0.6 grams. Fine. The pituitary gland has got two distinct lobes, as you can see from the diagram. Pituitary gland has two distinct lobes. One is called as the anterior lobe, which is also called as the adenohypophysis, and the second is the posterior lobe, which is also called as the neurohypophysis, right? Now, the anterior lobe or the adenohypophysis, that's my anterior lobe, is originated from oral epithelium, that's from where it is produced, that is your pharynx, and it is non-nervous in origin. It is non-nervous in origin. Fine. So it comes from the pharynx, and that is the reason why we say that it originates from oral epithelium. It is non-nervous in origin. It does not have any nerves in it, right? Now, the neurohypophysis, that's your posterior lobe. The neurohypophysis arises from the base of hypothalamus. Arises from the base of hypothalamus, right? That is, it is nervous in origin. It is nervous in origin. Fine. Now, the adenohypophysis has three major parts, as we can see from the diagram. The adenohypophysis has three major parts. One is the pars distilis. That's your major part and functional. Second is the pars tuberculis, that is poorly developed in human. And the third part is pars intermedia. It is vestigial in human. That means it is an extra part, it is no longer used. So you have pars distalis, pars tuberculis, and pars intermedia. Now let's see each one of them in detail. First, let's start with, so that was, in this you have pars distalis. Now pars distalis is a major part of the adenohypophysis. It is a major part of the adenohypophysis. It is composed of three types of cells. Three types of cells. They are called as the acidophils, basophils, and the chromophobes. Basophils and chromophobes. Right? Amongst these cells, there are large number of capillaries. Among these cells, there are large number of capillaries called sinusoids. Right? Now, sinusoids form hypophyseal portal system. Form hypophyseal portal system, which plays an important role in transporting the pituitary hormones to the target organ. Which plays an important role in transporting transporting the pituitary hormones to the target organ. So that was about pars distalis, right? Which is your major organ. It is made up of three different types of cells, and it has this system called as sinusoids, right? And it is these sinusoids that help in transporting the hormones to the pituitary organs. Now, let's see the histological structure of pituitary. Histological structure of pituitary. Now, see this diagram. Right? These are your acidophils. These are shows sinusoids. You have this is your rectangular fiber or reticular fiber, sorry, reticular fiber, right? And these, here you will have your basophils and the chromophores. These are your basophils. The chromophores are just below that. These are your second layer is your chromophores. Right? So that's your histological structure of your pituitary, right? Let's see this. The histological histology of anterior pituitary shows the presence of cords of cells bound together by reticular fibers. Shows the presence of cords of cells bound together by reticular fibers. Right? Now, amongst the cords of cells are sinusoids and lymph spaces. Among the cords of cells are sinusoids and lymph spaces. Okay, there are two main types of cells that are present in here, which are called as chromophils and chromophores. There are two main types of cells. There are two main types of cells. A, chromophils, and B is chromophores. Fine. Now, chromophils give rise to two types of cells again. They are acidophils and basophils. Chromophils give rise to two types of cells, which is acidophils and basophils. Fine. Now what are acidophils? Acidophils. Let's start with acidophils. Acidophils are round elliptical cells with granules. Are round elliptical cells with granules, well developed Golgi bodies, and small rod-like mitochondria. That's what acidophils are made up of. These cells are strained with acidic dyes. Cells are stained with acidic dye. Right? Now, acidophils are made up of three types of endocrine glands. Acidophils are made of three types of endocrine cells. Are made of three types of endocrine cells. Right? They are the somatotropes, such as A, the somatotropes. Second, the corticotropes. And the third is the lactotropes. So acidophil cells are made up of three types of cells. There are three types of acidophils, acidotropes, no? Acidophils. Acidophils are made up of three different types of cells. They are the somatotropes, the corticotropes, and the lactotropes, secreting STH, ACTH, we'll see about these hormones a little later, and prolactin respectively. Right? So the somatotropes secrete STH, the corticotropes secrete ACTH, and the lactotropes secrete prolactin. Fine? So that was about acidophils. Next you have basophils. Basophils are fewer in number than acidophils. They are irregular cells with granules. Irregular cells with granules. They are irregular cells with granules and Golgi bodies. These cells are strained with basic dye. Are stained with basic dye. Basophils are of two types. Basophils are of two types. First is called as thyrotropes, and second is gonadotropes. Secreting TSH, FSH and NH. So these are the hormones that are secreted by basophils. Fine. Then you have, this was about chromophils. Now let's see about chromophobes. Now chromophobes are called the chief or the reserve cells. Are called chief or reserve cells. Right? They are stellate cells, unstained, without granules. Right? They give rise to new chromophils. They give rise to new chromophils. Fine. Now, so that was my structure of anterior pituitary. Right? Now let's try to understand the structure of posterior pituitary. Structure of posterior pituitary. Now, as we have already seen in the diagram, the posterior pituitary is called as the neurohypophysis. It is called the neurohypophysis. Right? It consists of three parts. One, it is made up of pars nervosa. Next, it is made up of infundibulum, and third, it is made up of hypothalamus. Right? Now, the infundibulum is also called as the stalk, or it is also called as the stalk, which is made up of median eminence and hypophyseal stalk. Right? The median eminence and hypophyseal stalk together form form a stalk of posterior pituitary called the infundibulum. Fine. Now, the neurohypophysis consists of large number of neurological cells which are spindle shaped branch cells, right? Can you just see the diagram? These cells, these are those spindle shaped branch cells which are called as pituocytes, which do not secrete any hormone but they support and nourish the tissues of pituitary lobe. Fine, do we get this in here? The pituocytes are supplied with nerve fibers and blood vessels. The nerve fibers begin from the neurosecretory cells in the hypothalamus. You can see that they are moving, they are coming in from the hypothalamus, right, of the brain. The neurosecretory cells produce two hormones. They produce oxytocin and vasopressin. Fine. Just let's write this down. The neurohypophysis consists of large number of large neurological cells and spindle shaped branched cells called pituocytes, right, which do not secrete any hormone but they support and nourish the tissues of the pituitary lobe. The tissues of the pituitary lobe. Fine. The pituocytes are supplied with nerve fibers. And blood vessels. Right? The nerve fibers begin from the nerve fibers begin from neurosecretory cells in the hypothalamus of the brain. Fine. The neurosecretory cells produce two hormones. The neurosecretory cells produce two hormones. Now the two hormones that they produce are one, they produce the oxytocin, which is also called as the pitocin, and the second they produce is vasopressin, which is also called as the ADH. Fine, do we get this thing here? So, do we understand the structure of the posterior pituitary? Okay, we will stop this here for the day. Thank you very much.